All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Programmability and Automation Meetup group this week, a little earlier than normal over the noon hour, as we have the team from Slurp'it and Netpicker here to talk about how to succeed with network automation using Slurp'it and Netpicker. And with that, I will turn it over.
All right, thanks. Thanks, everybody. I will start with an introduction. My name is Wim Gerrits. I'm sort of the founder and CEO behind the two companies. We have a history with, also 15 years of history in building tools, but the Slurp'it and Netpicker were evolved in the last few years based on new architecture. So I'm going to talk about that. And I have on the call with me Peter van Os, who basically heads up the Slurp'it product development, and Otto Koster, who is heading up the Netpicker. So start with introduction. So background, I mean, this is where we came from. I always use the slide to explain that we have a long history in building an application around network automation. It was a company called NetEase. You might have heard of it or not, but we had done this till 2022 as a unified platform for configuration management, automation, intent-based networking. But we came to a sort of a dead end in terms of the technologies used and everything underneath. So we started with a modern architecture, and that's where Slurp'it and Netpicker came from. And also the whole go-to-market changed with that, because we basically went with open source where possible, modernized, Dockerized using Git and all that stuff, which you're going to see today. Let me just go straight basically to what we see as the main challenges, because over the last, I would say, let's say 5 to 7 years, we've seen the network automation community evolve to at least start using things like NetBox, and there are alternatives, but like most people know that. But so how do you start with, instead of an Excel sheet, having your information somewhere centrally? How can you then use it to actually drive down and standardize jobs going into your network? And basically the first step, if you start with a database or a source of truth, is how do you discover your network, and how can you reconcile that information into NetBox? And that's what Peter's going to show you today with Slurp'it. Then the second question is like, well, how good is my network in terms of my design, my compliance, my vulnerabilities, hardening, all the systhing, all these kind of things. So what Netpicker basically does is actually the ability to run full testing against your configurations, show commands, but also other data sets like NetBox, and use the information that is externally available to check state versus intent. And then finally, you want to actually drive down the automation and make changes to the network. And I'm using this picture that we use this actually ongoing also with the partners that we basically integrated with. NetBox is sort of the first and main one that we started with, but we also integrate into Nautobot, and Infrahub is a new kid on the block. They have the same problem. How do you start, and how do you actually get your network information? So Slurp'it, just a high level, it uses open source NetMiko libraries under the hood. So it has a discovery engine. I'm going to show you that. Then once we discover devices, we need to get the data from those devices. So we use TextFSM and parsing to normalize the data. And then we have all that data. We can onboard this into your source of truth. And Netpicker uses the config backup. So there's a config management solution with a full PyTest-based framework for running any kinds of tests in your network. And I'm not sure whether we're going to touch on this in the end, but the final goal, I think what a lot of people are challenged with is like, how do I know in a simple way that if I have my intent defined in my NetBox system, how do I know whether my live stated my actual production network is reflecting that intent? And we can run fully automated tests, and we have a script here that is actually within Netpicker. And I think Otto is going to show you this, how we can do this. So this is more of an advanced case. We will start more with simple tests, but in the end, this is more for the workshop. But I think with that, I'm going to hand over basically to Peter to start showing you the Slurp'it edition first, and then end with Otto and how we can run these kind of tests. Cool. Let me see. Peter, you going to take over?
Yeah, sure. Let me see. It's the first time I use WebEx like this here. Share. Optimize text. Let's see. Window. And then our window. And I have to quickly switch. Okay. See my screen?
Yep.
Does this work? Yes or no? Okay, cool. So I always start, before I start showing things and how things work, I always start a little bit with the architecture to explain where we came from and explain how we build it and why we build it like this. When we started with Slurp'it, we had already a lot of experience with like building network automation platforms and structures. And in the end, we always accounted a little bit the same thing, that it became too big at a certain point, too big to manage, or it had too many features people didn't need. On top of it, you had like operating systems you had to care for and so on. So at a certain point, we decided, okay, we're going to build a discovery solution and we're going to build it on a modern architecture. So we build it image-based. So what you see here is Docker, and Docker is preferred for us, but in essence, it means like, okay, everything runs as a service. So it can run on Podman, it can run on Kubernetes. In the end, it doesn't really matter, but it's a microservice platform. So everything kind of works together, and together all those containers are the application. So the portal for us is the GUI and the REST API. So that's what you see. And the cool thing is, since this is a separate image, we can run it on cloud or on premise actually. So this way you can say, okay, well, we're a cloud-based company, but we want our data still locally in the data center and not somewhere at Google, Amazon, or Microsoft. So this way you can play a little bit like, okay, where do I want to host my container with my data? And how it works together, this is a nice picture made by Rick from Packet Coders. So the portal itself here at the top communicates in the middle with the database. And the database is something we call a warehouse. And it's a MongoDB NoSQL database, which can store all the raw data. And it's built in such a way that it can store all the data of your network unstructured, and it's used to have a lot of data, and it can be very big. Like that's what NoSQL databases are built for. And then at the bottom, we added two functionalities. One is a device finder, and the other one is a data collector. Why did we add the device finder? Well, what we learned from experience is that people find it difficult to start with a blank system. So what the device finder will do is you can specify an IP range, IP addresses, or it can even use collect IP space from the scraper, and it will scan your network and try to find network devices based on the NetMiko naming convention. So Cisco IOS will be Cisco _IOS and so on. So we try to find them, we try to allocate them. For this, we need SNMP because else we don't know, is it a Cisco XE, is it iOS, is it Nexus? So for that, we use SNMP with some kind of fingerprinting on top. And then we add it to the database. And then when it's in the database, the data collector kicks in, logs in, starts scraping the data, stores it in the warehouse. And this way you have like a full flow that you can access your data structured from anywhere. Last cool thing before I start showing you the application. What's nice about the microservice platform is that you can do horizontal scaling. So if you have like a lot of domains or multi-segmented network, and you say, okay, well, we have so many devices, just one scraper and one scanner are never going to be able to reach it. You can scale it up horizontally. So you can just spin up multiple scrapers and scanners per segment of the network. They can all send the data they find to the data warehouse, and the portal and everything else. Everything will still function the same. It's just, yeah, the hands in the network, the servers, the workers, give it a name, they will be a bit quicker in collecting the data. So by saying that in a nutshell, we move toward the application itself. So what I showed you before, like the layers, so this is what you see here is the portal. We try to make like a modern, slick UI, and in essence, I always like to say, like, I like Japanese way of thinking, like everything should kind of explain itself. So we really try to make everything simple and down to earth, that it's really easy to understand like how the platform works and how to move through it. So the dashboard should give you an overview of what the system is doing, how it's going. Like if the scanner finds a new device in the network, it's say here like, hey, we found this week or today or this month this amount of new devices. your license, the templates. The templates are quite cool. So unstructured data from the network to structurize it and to make it like multi-vendor. So to, for example, to map the ARP table from, let's say, a Juniper with a Cisco one and have a nice overview can be quite challenging. So what we did for this is we used TextFSM, and TextFSM is a parsing language made by Google. And the nice thing is that the guys from Network to Code, they made like a huge open source library. So what we do is we scan this library, we add the templates in here, but we also have a possibility that if you as a customer made a template or we made a template, then we can actually commit it back to them. So you have, for example, the possibility to share the templates back, and you will share them then with us. We will verify them, and we will see if they hit the standards of Network to Code, and then we will add them to the repository for them as well. So this way it becomes kind of like a moving product. So sort of say that, let's start with the beginning. So you need to have devices in here, and this is where the Finder starts in. So you can add devices by hand. Of course, you can import them. There's an API, there's a valving, or there is the device finder. And what I said before about the device finder is that you can specify a network, a range, multiple. It will just scan it, try to find devices, and if it finds them, it adds it to Slurp'it. But the cool thing is, it will also add it to the connected system. So if you have NetBox or Nautobot connected to here, it will actually also directly add it in there. So it can really run as a black box in your network and provision this way NetBox or Nautobot as well. And to see that's how that works, you see here, for example, the plugin connectivity. So if you go here to settings and you check the plugin, you can see precisely here for like the multiple systems as well, which data you can sync. So you can also decide like, okay, I don't want to sync the devices. I just want to do the IPAM or the interfaces or the prefixes. So you can tweak it a little bit here, like how you would have it or how it would look like. When the data gets in there, or the devices are in here, the next thing is that we want to start collecting the data. And to do that, we created something we call a planning. And in a planning, you define how often you want to collect the data, for which part of the network. So this is like, as we call it, the golden 10 we deliver out of the box. But you can also just create your own as well. So if you say, okay, I miss data for multicast, or I miss data for ISAS, or any other entity of the network where you would like to collect the data from, you can add your own planning. And then per planning, you can say, okay, I want to keep this data for this amount of time, but I also want to scrape my network every 3 hours or once a day. You can do it cron style. So you're fully in control, like which part of the data you want to collect and how often, and yeah, how that's all stored in the database. When this runs, you get like a new object here. So I create a planning, and you will see here collected data as well, that it will create a new menu item. And when you click on it, you see actually like the data coming in. Now, on top of just getting the data, we added some kind of metadata enrichment. So if it's an IP address, we also try to do the FQDN lookup automatically. Since this is my home network, I don't really have DNS. I believe Pi-hole somewhere. Let's see. No, Pi-hole's not there. So normally you will see here precisely what's registered in your DNS server. And we do the same with the MAC addresses. Like we transfer it to which vendor is behind it. So this way you can really easily search in your network for certain devices. Or for example, we had like a use case once where somebody like deployed Raspberry Pis all around the network and the engineers had to find it. Yeah, you can then just search here, in this case for Nintendo or Raspberry Pi, and it will pop it up. Now, the challenge we had when actually storing the data was like getting the unique. Because if you collect, for example, routing table X amount of time, there are values which you get back, which change every time you do the command. So there are like timestamps or metrics, not metrics don't change, but aging, for example, is one. And that would change every time. So it was very difficult for us to get the unique. So what we did for that is per planning, you can tweak a little bit the columns of the collected data report. So you can give it a uniform name. You can specify a type, and with the type, you do the metadata enrichment, what I showed before. But you can also specify it as a key. So in this case, for ARP, IP plus MAC plus interface, those three should be unique. And if those three are the same, Slurp'it will detect it as unique. And this way we can filter between historical data and unique data. And this is also changeable. So you can, because if you say, well, type for us is also unique, you could give it a key attribute as well. And this way you can tweak everything a little bit. As a result, that if I change this to historic data, that I actually get much more data. And if I search for my, I don't know, I grab something random here, or that I can see here, this one is being grabbed from 2 different IP addresses I see, but you can see here like kind of the time frame. So it was 3 this morning, then it was 6, then it was 9, 12, 3, and so on. So this is what you saw in the planning that we said, well, collect this every 3 hours. Well, that's what you see here. And then with the unique, we make it unique again. Next to that, sort to say. So this is how the structure works. This is how it's set up. Now we have the templates in here. So Network to Code does not have all the templates you need. Their repository, I think, by now has like 600. We have now 900. So we created like 300 of them over time extra. And you can add them here yourself as well. So if there is a certain data from the network which you would like to scrape, but you cannot find it in here, how it works, you can just add a template, build the whole text event part here. There's a help function where you get like instructions how to do it. There is a getting started. But you can also just take an existing one. I always like to take the Cisco iOS one. And well, let's say the ARP, we were using the ARP. So you can just edit an existing one. You can see how it's being built up. You can, while building here, you can validate it to see, okay, is there somewhere a typo? Is this actually going to work? And there is a live template tester that while building this, that you can also actually see if the data is being parsed. So let's see. Yeah, there it goes. So you get it parsed back. Well, normally, as most people will know, you get like a raw table back. So this is a bit the setup. Slurp'it has much more what it can do, how you can use it. There is an SDK, there is an API where you can literally like get every teeny tiny data you see here in the GUI, you can get as well through the API or through the SDK. I don't want to go over that too long because I want to show like the integration with NetBox and then Otto takes over. I just want to let you know that if you want to learn more, you want a little bit more how stuff is being done, there's here getting started. There's an online course, and there we have like a form. It loads with a lot of YouTube videos where you like be instructed a little bit like, okay, how is stuff set up? How can I debug it? How can I set up certain ways? To do more advanced stuff with it. Okay, so I have Slurp'it here, and I'm going to show now the integration with NetBox. So I have NetBox here. You can also play with this if you want. So there are URLs here which you can just access, and then you can see both systems, and you can actually play with it live. And we have a NetBox plugin. So the first time you have to set it up, and you can set it up in 2 ways, pull or push. With push, Slurp'it is pushing the data toward NetBox. And with pull, Slurp'it's not doing anything, and you get like synchronization buttons here, where you, from NetBox on, are in control when you say, okay, I want to have the data in here. So the cool thing is, the Slurp'it device finder is scanning. It finds a new device in your network, and it comes here the first time, so you can onboard it. Devices which are not onboarded will not be touched. So you're also in control here. Okay, Slurp'it can update those devices, but is not allowed to touch these. I take Cisco, I onboard it. I can add some extra metadata from NetBox if needed. I click on apply, and you see here an onboarded section where you have then another onboarded device. There are 2 other tabs, conflict and migrate. If you already have a brownfield network and Slurp'it starts adding new devices toward NetBox, then the first time they can be in conflict. So it can say, okay, well, we already have this device in NetBox, you're adding it from Slurp'it. what do you want to do? Do you only want to start it monitoring from now on, or do you actually want to recreate it? So remove the one from NetBox and re-add it from Slurp'it. Both ways are possible, but the cool thing about this onboarding thing is that if you're new to NetBox or Nautobot or Infrahub, and you find a quick, or you need a quick way to actually have all your data in here, that's what this plugin can help you with. So you don't have to add all the teeny tiny details yourself. We will do it. And when the device is onboarded, it's quite cool. So we have the custom fields here where you see the data our device finder found in here. But we also created a tab in here, Slurp'it, where you can load the plannings that you saw before in Slurp'it directly into NetBox. So I can just do open, I see the ARP, I can see the time on my device, or the live interfaces. And this way, you get more and more Slurp'it data in NetBox. So,
Peter, can I say there's a question that came from Joe that maybe is a good time to answer? Like, if you input the devices to Nautobot, for example, can you set the status to like discovered? Like, can you set the status as when we discover them? Yeah.
So
Or tag.
the device status, I think by default is inventory. We can tweak that actually. So the thing is, we're not building a lot of stuff in here that we think like, oh, maybe this is a good idea. So a lot of it is actually feedback driven. So if you say, okay, for us, this is really a must to have a different status in here, it's possible. We did it now with roles. So it gets a role Slurp'it. But yeah, we could do the same with status. It's quite easy to change. You can actually even do it yourself. Like the plugin is open source. We have like a video how you can change the plugin and rebuild it for yourself. So that could also be an option. So there's a tag edit as well. So yeah, status could work, but yeah, by default we do the inventory. But we do, wait, actually, I'm thinking about this. Let me try on another device. So I onboard the Nexus. There's no status here. No, maybe we should actually add it here, because you can do multi onboard, and then you can change a couple things here, like the role, the device type. I think if we add status here, then you can actually do it yourself while onboarding. Yeah, okay. I'll write it down for the next time. So this is the device onboarding. To go a little bit back. So this is the basics. Now, when your device is in there, what a lot of people want is actually having the NetBox and Nautobot data objects field. And for this, we built the reconcile option. So what I showed before here in Slurp'it in the settings, that you can configure here, like, okay, which data objects do you want to fill? And we keep extending them, like VLANs and VRFs are almost being finished to add in here as well. But you can tweak them here. And then when this data is being found by Slurp'it, we send it toward NetBox, but we not automatically add it in there. So you have the possibility to tweak it a little bit or to decline it when it comes in. If you don't, you can just multi-select, add the prefixes, add the IPAM, which is good to know. This is all adding. If there's already data and there is no change, we will ignore it. If there is a change, it will say here updating. And then when you click here, you get like in Git, you get to see like a diff, like, okay, what did change? But since this is a fresh database, I don't have it. So I accept it. I put everything in here. And now here, if I go to the organization, that's not correct actually. IPAM, prefixes. You see here all the prefixes. You see the utilization from the addresses. So it's an easy way to have your IPAM fully up to date. Now, during a reconcile, it's possible to actually edit the change before it gets in, but it's also possible to have, we call it data mapping, to add or change certain data before it's stored in NetBox. So as you see, those are the 3 data objects we support at the moment. And here you could give it another status, and this will then be the default. So you can say for IPAM, if you want to know sure where it's coming from, you could say default description is by Slurp'it. And then if it gets in again, Yeah, so it will add this tag by Slurp'it, and we can do the same for interfaces. Interfaces doesn't have the description though. Prefix does.
Joe is saying status is inventory and Nautobot, so that would be fine. Just need a way to identify that it hasn't been reviewed by our engineers. That it hasn't been reviewed. Okay, yeah. So I think that's the tagging and everything is good, Peter.
Yeah, so that can be done with the tagging, and it's more for the data objects. You can manipulate them here as a default, because there is certain data which we don't know from the network, like a description, for example, for an IP address or a prefix. So we give you the opportunity here to have static data being pre-configured. And you can also control here if you actually want to use the reconcile or not. If you say, well, I don't want to click every time on accept, just when you find new data added in my system, you can uncheck this thing as well, and then it will just be automatically being added. Before we move to NetBox, I want to show one little thing. So now the data is in here, and I just set the default mapping. There's actually a way for me to enforce the plugin. Let's see, it's plugin. So normally we work with something we call webhooks. So if a planning is finished, it will call back to our system, and then it will directly add it into NetBox. So if you have a planning, for example, and you have a large network and it takes, I don't know, an hour to scan your whole network, you will see that after 5 minutes, you already see data coming in NetBox, because we don't wait until a planning is fully finished. We will do on the fly when data gets in, we will directly call it back to NetBox. This way we can spread the load a little bit of filling the system over the time when the planning runs. But yeah, there is a trick. With sync, I can actually manually just once run this, and then with the sync queue, I will force the queue to start running. So now if I go back here, you will see again the data, and this time it says changing, because yeah, something changed, because we set this by Slurp'it description. So now if I click here, you see what I meant before. So you see like, okay, well, this has changed. Then you see before it was this, and now it's this. So we show you a little bit of the diff before it gets in. And another cool thing is you see now that it found 5 new interfaces. That's because we just onboarded the Cisco. So it will only provision for a device interfaces, which, yeah, from a device Slurp'it actually onboarded. So I had them in there. One time we go here, iOS. And as you can see, the interfaces are in here.
Cool. Shall we, given time, yeah, shall we? Maybe I always like to end up. The question hasn't been asked, but normally it always pops up. How do we license this, and how do we do this? Maybe you can show the page and just an explainer. We have a free version that a lot of people download. So I think we had over 1,000 or 1,500 people downloading it since the first AutoCon, where we launched the whole thing. The website, Peter, maybe on the price.
Yeah, I can explain it. I can explain it a little bit here as well, but sure.
Yeah, so if you download it, you get basically the plugin, you get the full basically functionality, but there's only a limit on the number of data. So you'll see on the left, there's no limit on the number of devices that you can find. So if you have a network with thousands of devices, even, you can use the free version. You can have the device finder go out and actually go out and find all these devices, add it, onboard them into NetBox or Nautobot. That's all free. If you want all the data, like the ARP tables, the interfaces, and all that stuff, for 10 devices, it's in there. And if you want for more, then you need a license. And then we have a starter and a professional. Starter is basically like a project-based 2 months license if people want to onboard once or just document one time the NetBox system. Typically, people use the professional, which is depending on the number of devices. So for 200 devices, you see there, that's a price per year. And so I think it's quite clear. And then if you have a specific question on a quote, and just reach out to us, and we'll get back to you on that. But one thing on that, and also for NetPicker, has in the same structure on the way we license the whole product. There's also a free version. There's also a starter. A free version has unlimited configuration backup, so you can. Otto's going to show this for replacement of oxidized or rancid kind of tools. But on the level of pricing, we wanted to be like way cheaper than sort of the, I don't know, the tools that have venture capital companies behind them and that need maybe like 100K minimum project to start. You'll see typical projects can be 5 to 10K, and then we have larger networks, maybe 20, 30K or so a year. So we try to be around 20% of, well, the competitors in this field. Anyway, just wanted to say that. Yeah. Thanks.
One, if I
Yeah,
can
Nick,
jump
please.
in, one quick question. If you have a device that's been discovered and then it doesn't find it again, so say a device has been decommed and someone didn't clean the data up, does it have any handling for a device that's disappeared?
Yeah. So what we have here is like a last seen stamp. So when it's manually being done, we ignore it. But if it's done by the device finder, it will kind of monitor it in here as well, like the last seen. And what you can configure here in settings is that if a device has not been seen for, you can configure it yourself. So let's say 60 days, it will disable it. And when a device is disabled, you can say, okay, well, remove it after 90 days, sort of say. And it will do this in NetBox as well, or Nautobot. So if I go here to my, let's say this one was onboarded, I disable it. Up. If I go back now here and I go to devices, you will see it's tagged as offline. And when I delete it, actually, or is it Nicotic? Delete. It will not actually delete it here, but it will tag it as decommissioning. So we will never delete it because else accidentally maybe we really destroy something. But we will tag it, and then you can just filter on it and delete them. But we can take control over it if you want.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Also great to see how quickly this works, Peter. It's both online systems, right? So, and
and as I said, there is much more, but as I keep talking, like we have rules in here that you can write your own Jinja template and actually manipulate data before it gets in, and we have that for the device finder as well. So there is much more for that. I would say just play with it, watch the series we made, and then everything what it can do will be clear.
Yeah. Hey, Peter, I had a couple of questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
The first one I saw, it was you had SNMP v2c. Do you have SNMP v3 support?
Yes. So the device finder, I went a bit quick over this. It has v2 and v3, and
yeah, we don't see the drop downs, Peter. So that's why.
But you see now v3, no?
Yeah, we see.
Yeah, so you see here changing
Okay.
it. So it switches between v2 and v3, so that's possible. And with one of the first projects I did, I had a client who said like, oh, I have no management network and I don't know where my devices are configured. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting one. So what we did for him is he just configured his core network in here. We found the core network, we collected the data from the core network, and we built a crawler on top. And what you can do with crawler is you can specify from which plannings it should grab the IP data.
Find your neighbors.
And then exactly, it gets a list of IP addresses, and it's going to, per IP address, try to see, are you network device? Are you network device? If it is, adds it to the system, and this way, as a spider, kind of hops over the network. Yeah.
Great. And then, is there any other methodology other than SNMP? Is there any sort of CLI-based discovery, or?
How would CLI-based discovery work?
Well, or you
it is
through the device.
It is CLI. It's all SSH, right? So this is CLI, but it converts it.
Now this is SNMP. This is SNMP. So with SNMP, we edit. So okay. So I think I know what you mean. So we would log in on the core. We would do like show LLDP. We would see a network device there. But do we know then what kind of device it is? Because we get a bit more data than just the basics. Let me see if this works.
But Joe, do you mean discovery of devices or actually the data? Because that's of course via SSH.
Because yeah, as you see here, we collect a couple more things from the SNMP. Also the.
So you guys are doing both SNMP and SSH. That's more what my question was. I must have missed that at the beginning.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, no, we do SNMP to find the devices, and then we use SSH to collect the data.
To collect. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I missed that in the beginning.
No worries, no worries. Okay, no, that's the whole part here with the planning and the templates and yeah, no.
Cool. Shall we move to Otto?
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's do an. Let me share. So you should see our reference architecture right now. To quickly come back to that, we've talked about Slurp'it already for device discovery. We've seen NetBox, where your source of truth lives. NetPicker, we position it like in the middle. So we take the information from devices that is either in NetBox or in Slurp'it, or both actually. And we go out to the network, to your network devices via SSH. And we validate actually what is in NetBox or what is in Slurp'it is of course the actual state of the device, but in NetBox there can be a difference between the intended state of your devices and the actual state. So we position NetPicker as a Python-based testing platform. It started out as specifically network testing, but since you can also connect via SSH to, for example, Linux servers, web servers, it's way more versatile than just network devices. But our primary use case is for compliance, for security checks, hardening your network with best practices. And we provide some libraries out of the box with NetPicker for that. But you could also use compliance tests for industry regulations or even like design-based validations if you're so advanced with that. And with this Python base, so that means that you can use your Python skills to write PyTests, which are the Python unit tests. And those run against a device, and that can be either against device configuration or show command output, or even going a step further against APIs. So we provide built-in support for the NetBox API. We have support for the Aruba controller-based systems. But yeah, since it's Python, you can do a request to any REST API, get the data, and then compare that against the actual state of your devices. For those who are not very familiar with Python, we offer a way to write a test via the GUI. We call that a simple test, and that's just like you see here an example. I will show you in the application later on. It's just that you provide either a show command or a configuration, and you can do like simple text matching with support for regular expressions. This makes it really easy to get started with. If you're not a coder, if you don't have any Python skills, then you can still use NetPicker just to write simple tests. But we strongly believe in the vision that Python is the way forward for network automation. It's a very popular language. It's easy to learn, and I think most network engineers at least have some desire to know more about it. And what's great about NetPicker is that even these simple tests that you see here are under the hood still Python unit tests. So if you're ready to make the jump, you can just expand your skills. If you need any help writing a test, we've provided a custom ChatGPT prompt, which uses our documentation, which is also on the website. And that will help you a lot with writing a test. I'm not super familiar with Python myself, so I use this a lot when I'm trying to write use cases for customers. Without further ado, let's go to the application. It comes out of the box with this library, which is on our GitHub. We call this PyTest for networking. And it contains example tests for the sys hardening or some CVE vulnerability tests. And we've recently added an integration test for NetBox, and I will show you that in a minute. So the application is very much similar to Slurp'it in terms of architecture. So we run fully locally on Docker containers. So no data goes to the cloud. You can even use it without any internet connection, which is crucial for a lot of our clients who are more with working with sensitive data. And it all starts with a device list. So you see here our sandbox environment. This is actually the environment that you can play yourself in. If you go to our website, there's a button where you can request access. And once you've got these devices in, and you can do that in multiple ways, either manually by adding a device here, you can import from NetBox, Slurp'it, or CSV from your source of truth system. We start making backups, and these backups are done just by connecting via SSH to the device and running a command to get the output. For example, we've got some Cisco devices in here where I can open up one. Oh, this is not a valid device. Let me find one which is more yeah, this is pretty representative. So this is a Cisco iOS device, and you see here, this is just the output of the show running config command. And next to the config itself, we also store the output of any show commands that are used in the test later on. So, for example, if you use show IP SSH as a command in the test, then we will store this data as well, and it's all version controlled in a Git repository. So the funny thing is that I can select two configs here. I click compare, and you see here a nice diff view with what has changed. And since we store only the diff in Git, it's also very space efficient. So we store the config one time and then only the changes on top of that, which also means that you can do easy rollback. You can go back in time and download a previous version of your config. And here, this is a nice view where we show the diff in a little bit a different way in a timeline. But going to the testing phase, like we need something to test against. So device configs show command output is just a starting point. Once you've got these backups set up, you can go to the policies section, which is our way of grouping Python unit tests. You see here the sys and CVE libraries and some other stuff. I will quickly show you an example of a sys test, and then I'll move on to the NetBox integration since I don't have much time left. So you see here, like we've provided these rules with NetPicker, and these are coming from the Cisco website, and it's actually their hardening guidelines based on the policies of the Center of Internet Security. Yeah, this looks a bit intimidating, but this is because you're now in a Python test. So we provide like a kind of editor and live debugger here in this view, where on the left you can select a device. And, oh, this is an XE device. We don't have that. Let me get the other one. Ah, yeah, this is nice. This is a simple test. So you see here, no Python editor here, but on the left I can select a device here. So let's do this one. I know this one works. And if I click debug here, what is actually happening is that we are gonna check the output of this show command for this device. And in this case, we are using the command backup here. So it will not go out to a live device, but if you need real-time data, you can select the real-time command here. And then we do a simple text match. So we look for the text SNMP agent not enabled. Well, you see here, that's actually what is the output of this command. So this is compliant. If I put anything else here, like this, and I've selected the real-time command now here. So now it's going out to the device. It runs this show command, and it should fail, and it should give me an error. So and since it's going to a live device, it takes a little bit more time. So you can see that this simple test is actually quite powerful already. That's not what I expected.
Ah. So the show command gives something else back.
Yeah. Community, well, not sure why this is happening. Probably the demo got. I want to show you that even if you're in this simple rule, you can click this toggle, show code, and it will show you the Python code that is actually running under the hood. And well, if you have a little bit more advanced or appetite for Python coding, then you can write any test you want. And I'm moving on to the integration with NetBox, because that's quite interesting. Because while you were talking about Slurp'it, Peter, I prepared something. So this is our NetBox integration test. It needs a little bit explanation, because this test, it compares the devices in NetBox with the actual state of the real device. So in short, it's comparing. I put up this Cisco device, which I also have in my network in NetPicker. I put it in your in your NetBox instance, and I added an interface to it, Ethernet 00, and I disabled it. So and then I ran this test in NetPicker. So if I go to the results tab here, you can see the result. So of course we have a lot more devices in NetPicker, and for a lot of them you see this error message, like the device was not found in NetBox, which is correct because I didn't enter that one. But for my Cisco device, you see here it's successful, so it's compliant, and so it's not only checking if that device is actually present in NetBox. If it is present, it loops through all the interfaces. So you see here, like it runs the show interfaces command. So it loops through them. It looks at the status. If the interface is up, then the status is enabled, and then it compares that with the status in NetBox. So if I run this test again, and then I have to edit it here, edit selected. Wait, to select. So I set it to, where is that setting?
Ah, that was you. I already saw on the device coming in. I was like, hey, somebody in my sandbox willing give the demo, but it was you.
Yeah. Yeah, here I can set it to enabled. So if I save this, so now I officially have a mismatch between what my source of truth is saying and what the actual device is saying, because here it is saying enabled, and of course the device should still say disabled. So I have now click debug, and I hope that the demo gods will be
on your side.
Yeah, will be on my side, because it should not be compliant now, and it should give me a status message that there's a status mismatch for this interface name.
So it uses the NetBox SDK, gets the devices into. Oh, nice. Okay, that's cool.
Actually timed out.
Oh, that's less cool.
Let's go. Let me try one more time.
Is it still going live to the device, or is it just?
Yeah, this is going live to the device. So you see here, it executes the show interfaces command on that device. So I hope actually that device is online.
I think I saw on the left it was trying all the devices it found in NetBox or not. You see on the left, I see also the two I onboarded. Router OS v6.
Yeah, there are some printing in here. So we do some
okay, nice.
devices that are in NetBox. We print the names, a little bit of debugging in here. Well, I cannot show you exactly what I wanted to show you right now. But what you see here for the results, instead of like devices not found, you would see here like the status of interface. Is something is not compliant with the actual state in NetBox.
Looks
so
like
this is
the lab is offline or not?
Yeah, I think so.
I think the even G is offline. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's cool about this is that you can give multiple levels of severity to a test. So you can prioritize, for example, critical security issues you can tag as a high severity, and maybe design issues can be low. So you have some granularity in reporting, and this is also really cool that I want to show you. So I can select a policy here. So let's select the sys policy, and then enable all these options. So we try to make NetPicker both powerful enough for engineers, but also user-friendly enough for like network operators, so that they can easily generate reports. So you see here, for each of the devices, we have nice graphs with the number of rules that are compliant as output and non-compliant. And then nice grids with, again, these severity levels. So yellow is low, and I think we have some red ones here as well. Oh, we don't. So you can see here, if you have a nice one overview of all your devices against all the rules in your policy. If you click it, it will scroll to the corresponding rule. And for all the sys policies that we provide out of the box, we provide a reference to the Cisco website as well, including remediation advice. So if your device is not hardened well enough, then you get some suggestions on how to fix that. Then lastly, we provide a way to notify other systems via webhooks. So I've set up here a complicated webhook, and I can show you because it's connected to my Slack environment. I like to show you because webhooks can be pretty powerful. So here's an example of an incoming webhook. This is being sent when the backup is done. So for all of the devices, I can see a Boolean here if the device configuration has changed or that the backup has failed, for example. So you see for most of them, there was no change, which is expected, of course. But for this one, there was a change. So what you can do with this information is you can customize it. You can even put an API call after this and then see the exact changes, or you can connect it to any notification system or monitoring system. So you get notified by these webhooks in NetPicker if there's an unauthorized change or on one of your devices. So everything I did here in the front end is API based. So same as with Slurp'it, we have a nice API, nice REST API, which you can do anything that you can do in the UI. You can also do via the API. So it's complete, engineer friendly. So I suggest, you can try out the sandbox yourself. If you want to try it out on your own network, I suggest you download our free for live version. This includes unlimited device backups and unlimited testing for 10 devices. So you can write as much tests as you would like. The reporting is limited to 10 devices. And we have a very extensive knowledge base and videos on our YouTube channel by our colleague that explains every feature in way more detail than I can explain right now. Happy to answer some questions if there are any left. I cannot see the chat anymore.
Any questions from anybody out there? I don't see any in the chat. If anybody has any, please feel free to come off of mute.
All right.
Maybe question the other way around, Nick. Like discovery and compliance validation, are these things you see yourselves in the projects as a need to do? Or what kind of projects you typically, your team does?
Yeah, I mean, I think industry-wide, there's, the thing from a NetPicker standpoint that looks interesting to me as a whole is just the kind of ease in which you could get people writing tests that don't have the background or the experience in writing unit tests, right? I think, it's one of those things where we're having conversations, as we're working with and teaching people automation and doing all of these things of the importance of testing. And a lot of times it's very confusing to people. Even looking back at what we've done from a Meetup standpoint, we ran a series on testing probably a little over 2 years ago now at this point, and those are probably still some of the most viewed and rewatched, recordings, because it is something that I think a lot of people just struggle with in general. So that was a really cool feature to see in there.
Maybe Otto, can you show the ChatGPT, because that's the one actually that people will definitely love. I mean, we did on AutoCon in Amsterdam. We basically built our own prompt with all the NetPicker documentation in there. Anybody can use it. Also for.
I will show you it in the app actually. Where's my So we call it the NetPicker Network Test Creator. But it's actually just a custom prompt, and that AI is taking off very quickly. Of course, it's also really helpful if you're getting started with Python. So, for example, I can ask here, I want a test for my, no, well, let's do a Juniper device to check if all my interfaces if they are, yeah, let's keep it at this. So what it will actually do is it will use our documentation. So of course, a Python unit test, it needs some extra information, which is this part, which includes like the severity level. It needs a platform to match against the devices. And so it will get you 80-90% there. So of course you need to understand what it's doing, and otherwise you cannot judge if it's actually testing the right thing. But in terms of writing the code for you, it's amazing. So you can see here, it's I think it's pretty correct. Show interfaces, it splits the lines, it extracts the field, the interface name, status, and then it comes up with a nice error message if it's down. So yeah, I think that you can just copy this one-on-one and put it in a test, and yeah, you get within 5 minutes your.
You can debug it against a device, actual device, and test it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would advise that indeed. Like always test it against a device that you know you're certain that is either compliant or not compliant. Debug it there. Make sure that your test is correct. Then save it and then let it run over all your network devices, and then it will generate the reports for you.
Great.
All right.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, first of all, thank you for presenting this week. Thanks to everybody for attending. Please stay on the lookout. We're working on getting the next session scheduled for the month of September. If anybody needs to pick up the recording, it's out on YouTube right now and will be live in just a few minutes as soon as we end this. And then I'll post the recording. I'll get the slides from the team, and we'll get all of the relevant links and everything posted on the community that's out on wwt.com as well. So with that, we'll let everybody go. Have a great day, and thanks to the team as well for presenting. I know it's late, so have a great night as well.
Yeah. The last thing, if you guys are coming to AutoCon in Denver, we'll be there as well. So happy to meet in person.
Yeah,
we will be there.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Yep.
Thanks,
All right.
Nick, for having us. Cheers. Bye.
See ya.